Welcome to episode 195 of the Brainy Business, Understanding the Psychology of Why People Buy. In today's episode, I'm excited to introduce you to Karina Montes and Mario Drago from BE OEFA. Ready? Let's get started.
You are listening to the Brainy Business Podcast, where we dig into the psychology of why people buy and help you incorporate behavioral economics into your business, making it more brain-friendly. Now here's your host, Melina Palmer.
Hello, everyone. My name is Melina Palmer, and I want to welcome you to the Brainy Business Podcast. Today, I am very excited to introduce you to Karina Montes and Mario Drago from BE OEFA in Peru. These are the first guests on the show from South America, and I'm so excited to start having a more international presence in the guests coming up this year and into the future. Thank you to Carlos Hoyos, a listener of the show and a LinkedIn connection, for the suggestion and introduction. If you or someone you know is doing some cool work in behavioral economics in a country that isn't yet well represented in the space, reach out to me on LinkedIn, Melina Palmer, or send an email to melina@thebrainybusiness.com. I would love to see if it's a fit to feature you on the show, just like Karina and Mario's work with BE OEFA. And so you know, that is spelled BE space OEFA. OEFA is the environmental regulatory agency in Peru, sort of like the EPA here in the United States. And BE OEFA is a team Karina started a few years ago to help incorporate behavioral economics into their work with some amazing results, as you'll hear about in today's show. There are links to their research in both English and Spanish within the show notes for the episode, which are waiting for you within the app you're listening to, or at thebrainybusiness.com/195. Once there, you'll find links to a lot of other great related books, past episodes, and more. Again, those are at thebrainybusiness.com/195. Those already on the Brainy Business list got a direct link from me in the email you receive every Friday. Not on the list yet? Simply sign up for any freebie at thebrainybusiness.com and you'll be automatically added. The freebie for this episode is the first chapter of my award-winning book, What Your Customer Wants and Can't Tell You. And if you already have the book, in which case, thank you, you'll also be automatically added to the list when you get your copy of the free PDF companion workbook. Both are housed in our free behavioral economics community called the Be Thoughtful Revolution. There's a link to join that global community in those show notes as well. Now let's jump right in. Karina and Mario, welcome to the Brainy Business Podcast.
Thanks for the invitation, Melina. Thank you. I'm appreciated. I'm very glad to be here with you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Yes, so excited. I know we had talked about this in advance, but this is, I believe, our first set of guests from South America that are here on the show, which I'm very excited. Knowing, of course, like we were talking about, Dr. Marco Palma has been on the show, of course, and he is originally from South America, but as part of, works, of course, at Texas A&M University at the Human Behavior Lab there. So I'm so excited to be able to talk about some of the amazing behavioral economics work that you all are doing in Peru. Before we jump into, the project and things we're going to be talking about, would love to let the audience know a little bit about each of you and where, what your background is and where you came from. So, whomever wants to start, I think this story starts with Karina. So go ahead and let us know.
Okay, thank you. I'm really excited also to be here. Thanks for the platform. I'm Karina Montes. I'm an economist, and I work for the Environmental Enforcement Agency. Its name is OEFA. OEFA is the acronym in Spanish for the National Environmental Enforcement Agency here in Peru. OEFA is in charge of inspection and promote compliance in very important activities in my country as mining, industry, fishing, etc. Mario?
I'm a Peruvian lawyer and I have a master's degree in regulatory matters and a specialization in public policy. I don't work in OEFA. I'm an external consultant, but I've been part of this BE OEFA project for a couple of years. So I'm excited to be here explaining what we've done in the first set of experiments.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that when we did our pre-call conversation, we talked a little bit about how you both got involved and, how it's kind of bringing some of this behavioral economics into the space in Peru, and knowing that there are so many people listening from around the world who are struggling with a similar problem of saying, we're the first, I'm the only one, there's nobody else here who is doing anything with behavioral economics. I'm excited, but what do I do? Can you share a little bit about your story of how this even came together? And if you do have tips for anyone who's looking to do something similar in whatever country they are in.
Of course, Melina, I'm going to tell you about the story and how things happened. This is about in the year 2016. Everything started in 2016. We started with a group of reforms in this agency in OEFA. I was leading the data process and analysis reform that involved collected and processing a huge amount of data in order to set a group of indicators to measure our results. We didn't have a lot of data at that time. And meanwhile, a group of lawyers were designing new regulation, new incentives to promote compliance, to avoid sanctioning, because OEFA can put sanctions even if there's no environmental damage, because there's a lot of obligations, formal obligations. And if OEFA finds any violation, even in a formal way, we have to put a sanction. That's the law. So these lawyers were designing new regulations, new incentive benefits to promote compliance. And in about 2017, we were ready to measure our results, to measure our indicators. And we realized that, for example, we had strange results for us that didn't seem very rational. For example, these benefits were not working, our rates were very low, or there were processes that demand a lot of time and we couldn't understand what was happening. This didn't seem rational. And, I'm an economist, and in that year, Richard Thaler won the Nobel Prize recently, and my colleagues were talking about this book. So the book was very popular at that time. So we started to think, well, maybe this is the solution, because the book is also about not just in public policy. So me and a group of 3 colleagues, another economist and 2 lawyers, we started to reading the books and watching some TED Talks and YouTube videos, and said, come on, what's happening here? Really, this blew our minds. We said, so there's an irrational part of our brain, an automatic part. Maybe these results that we are getting are because there's this not rational part. So we said maybe the problems could be caused or could be explained by behavioral science. So we started to look for a trainer. At that time, the literature was mostly in English. And, in my country, we are Spanish speakers. So we needed a Spanish speaker trainer. And we couldn't find anyone in Peru at that time. We found this Mexican institute. And we thought we needed to form a group, different professionals in OEFA, in order to involve more professionals with this topic, and also to make the most of the time of the trainers. So these professionals, these trainers, Mexican trainers, came to Peru, and we had this training course with them, and we were chatting with them. We were very excited about all these new concepts. And when we were chatting, they said, we told them we couldn't find anyone in Peru, and they said, but there's someone. And they introduced us Mario. So that's the first part of the story.
Wonderful. And then what happened, Mario?
Before I tell you the full story about that, maybe I can tell you my background, because
of course,
maybe someone that is listening to this podcast is wondering why is there a lawyer invited here? How does a lawyer know about behavioral economics? And my relationship with behavioral economics and with behavioral design in general, it was kind of an accident. No, I was pretty much into law and economics, and there is the application of economic principles to regulation and to law to have better results that could be measured and so on. And I was doing an investigation in 2008 after a big earthquake in Peru that happened in southern Lima in a city called Pisco. If you go to Pisco and you go to the beach, there is a district called Pisco Playa, Pisco Beach in English. And almost 95% of that district was destroyed by the earthquake because of the ground that was not a good place to live in an earthquake country like Peru. It was a risk zone, if you want to define it. And we were trying to investigate why the public policies that were applied to the reconstruction and of this place were not working. And we found out that all these rational measures, all these incentives, economic incentives that were brought, were not working. And all this economic theory, this economic classical theory about how people think and how people decide, it's not working, it's not real, it's not getting applied. So we went, we were trying to investigate how we can fix that. And I found this first article wrote by Gus Sunstein. I think it was like some kind of regulatory advisor for Obama. And he was talking about how these psychological and social science principles should be introduced to public policy. So after that, I've been applying behavioral economics, not only to public policy, but also to law, to litigation, to tax, and to every aspect of life in which law and public policy is involved. So maybe it's something that it's pretty easy to understand for someone that is into marketing or someone that is into business, but it's not usually understood in a world of lawyers and a world of public policers. So after 10 years doing that, I'm very glad that people is beginning to understand that the public policies, the regulations are also products, and there is a customer, that is the citizen. So you can apply these principles and have better regulations that are that could be understood and could be applied by these customers that are the citizens, the enterprises, the private sector, and also the public sector that have to design it.
Yeah. And for one, you are not the first lawyer on the show. So we're Kwame Christian, a good friend of the Brainy Business. He has been here twice, and we talked about how he uses psychology and behavioral economic principles in anchoring when he's sending out letters and all sorts of stuff. So definitely,
I'm glad I'm not alone.
No, it's a great space to be. So with all of that's some of your background. And now we have Karina has this perfect moment where they say, there is somebody in Peru.
There is somebody. Yeah, that we just have conformed the group formally. Conform the group, and we needed a coach because we have set this group of 5 projects. We felt that we need somebody to come with us and to coach and come with us with all the process. So we found Mario and we applied the methodology. We started to setting the problem to find each group has to work with a problem, with one problem, one indicator. Find the problem with data, of course, analyze the behavior of interest groups, setting objectives, design the nudges, and that's what we hired Mario as a coach.
Yeah, so we met each other at 2018. They were searching for someone that could give them an outsider opinion, if I can define it like that. And actually, I am into behavioral economics, but I'm particularly litigator, and I have a lot of cases against OEFA or in OEFA for private companies, so I can provide the point of view of the companies and the private sector that was going to be the subjects of the experiments. So it's been a very interesting experience.
Yeah, and being able to bring the differing perspective that they may, when we get into our own spaces so much, especially with the regulatory agency, you get bogged down in your terminology and the way that things should work. And you just, everybody's going to do this because they should. And it's good for the planet, right?
Yeah, because it's written in the law. Everyone should know the law and read like thousands and millions of law and a lot of, yeah. That's the funny way about this, because in my country, then the law, if it's published, you should know the law. So if I find any violation, I have to put a penalty on that. And sometimes it's not fair. If you are, for example, a company that is not big, so sometimes you have to think in another way to promote compliance, to promote law compliance. And
right.
I think these kind of tools are very, very useful for that.
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned that you had these 5 projects that you were working on, which I believe ended up being published in a paper, which is how we all got put together. So as a shout out, a thank you to our mutual friend, Carlos Hoyos, for introducing us together. I know Carlos from LinkedIn and, he listens to the show. Thank you, Carlos. And it said, hey, if you're ever looking for something, have you talked to these amazing people? And I said, no, not yet. And so here we are, right?
Thank you to Carlos.
So can you tell a little bit then about the projects that you were working on? What were you trying to figure out and, what happened?
Maybe Karina, you can give more details about the problems you found since you were the one that identified them.
Of course, we identified 5 projects, 5 indicators that we thought that there were a problem that could be solved with behavioral science. 2 with companies, because we were designing a lot of benefits with correcting non-compliances, and the rates of correction were very, very low, and we were assuming, come on, what's going on? You're gonna have benefits, economic benefits, no penalty, no sanction, and you're gonna be good with environment, because everything is gonna be better for you, for me, for the people. Why are you not understanding? That were 2 projects very, very similar in different sectors, in different economic activities. Also, we have this problem with the people in OEFA, because we used to design a group of training courses for the people. And the rate of participating in these courses were also very, very low. So the boss of this area was saying, why nobody wants to be in my training courses? This isn't rational. The other 2 projects were for also government entities, because, for example, people we in OEFA received environmental complaints, and the rates of answer the complaint were very, very low. And we said, come on, there's a citizen here, there's a complaint, something maybe is wrong in their city, because OEFA has not all the functions. For example, about the garbage in the city, we cannot solve the problem. The municipality have to solve it. So we have to send them a letter and said, come on, there's some individual that is complaining because there's garbage in the corner, and we can solve it. We have to just send the communication to another public agency, and the rate of of response of that complaints were very, very low. Were like 30%. And we said, come on, there's complaints. What's happening? And the answer was around 70 days. So why is delaying so much? If you only have to answer if there's garbage in the corner or not, and if you can solve the problem. So that's our projects. They seem like, for us, very irrational, because we thought that the way to solve that problem was easy for the group of interest. For example, for people that, why don't you want to participate in my training courses? For the companies, why don't you want to correct your offenses if you're gonna have a benefit? And for the government, why don't you want to answer the complaints of the individuals if that's your responsibility and that's a thing you have to do as a government? So that's our group of projects, and we thought that were irrational for us and very easy to comply.
Yeah. And so then BE OEFA was created to be this kind of experimental nudge unit for you to work on seeing if you could solve these 5 problems. Can you share a little bit then about what that process was like of finding your team and bringing them together and designing the projects?
You know that for us, it was a special process because we were just 4 people. Me, my boss, Tessie, my colleague Marcos, that is an economist, and Giovanna, that is another colleague that is also a lawyer. And we started to watch these TED Talks and YouTube videos, to buy the books and start to borrow each other the books to read. Come on, read this part, read. And then we started to think this was very important for us, the knowledge that we had learned by ourselves. So we need to share this. No, we need to share these TED Talks with all the institutions in order to know if there's most people interested in. So we sent this email to everyone and said, are you interested in this? If you're interested, we're going to take a test. And we prepared a test of 20 questions. We did it all by ourselves. We prepared a test of 20 questions. So the day of the test, you can imagine, because that moment was 2018 and we were not in this pandemic thing. So no, the test was in person. So we had like groups of, I think more than 100 people take the test.
Wow.
Yeah, in OEFA, there's like 500 or 600 people, and a lot of people take the test. And we had the group for the training course. And we also mentioned the award, of course, because we were learning about incentives, no? So we said, and the people that approve the test are going to have this course with this Mexican institute, but it's going to be an advanced course because we thought that we already were not basic in behavioral economics anymore because we have read a lot. So we said to these Mexican colleagues, please, we need a training course that is not going to be basic, have to be advanced, because we need to apply the methodology to our projects. And the test was very good. A lot of people was like 100% in answers. Yeah. And we conformed the group with the people that were more motivated and had already know about this topic. So that was our first group of behavior of BE OEFA. They are very motivated. They are very motivated also right now also.
Yeah. And you narrowed them down to 30 people.
Yeah, 30 people. That conformed the first group. Now we are in the second group of projects that we named the second portfolio of projects. Now people are not going through that anymore because people change, change work, and we need some people that are new. But we also said in OEFA, if you want to be in BE OEFA, you have to train yourself first, read the books. And for example, for this second portfolio that started 2021, we take again the test, but was online.
Yeah.
And the second group of members of BE OEFA have also passed the test.
Awesome. And so then, Mario, you came in and got to help design the experiments for that. Can you share a little bit about that, the process you went through?
Yeah, after they had this course with Emiliano and the people of the behavioral economics Mexican team, I came to help these 5 groups to design the projects. And the first things I noticed was that as everyone that is beginning with this, with behavioral economics or behavioral science and want to apply something in the real world, they wanted to have a very quick result, and go from the theory to the practice in 3 days. And I told them, okay, wait a minute. We have to go back a little, and before we even start to do something, we have to do what every social scientist would do in this situation. That is knowing who is the one that's going to be the subject of your experiment, and why did you decide to apply this nudge or this incentive or this, and how to have a control group and an experimental group. So the first thing we have to discuss was, who was this persona? No, we told I think in marketing they told persona and UX,
right,
to the person that's going to be the one that's going to be nudged, if that term exists. Yeah. And we had to be, which incentive are we going to apply in each one of the projects. So we designed several experimental groups and tests for different groups, and began to compare. And after identifying the real problem, the causes of the problem, we were able to begin the experiments that I think last between 3 months and a year, to start seeing some results. So for example, I don't know if I'm saying something that has to be discussed later, but for example, you have a very first problem, that is, you have benefits if you acknowledge your responsibility in an administrative procedure. For example, you contaminate some place, and if you acknowledge your responsibility and you address that contamination and you repair it, you can be even exonerated from the fine. And people, even knowing that they may have a discount after the administrative procedure has begun, they preferred to litigate until the end for 5 years to have a fine of up to $10 million instead of paying just a little amount. Like, we're talking about mines and oil and gas companies, not regular people. And instead of paying $10 million, you can pay $100,000 if you pay now. So we can all avoid the time, the effort of having this procedure for 5 years. So the OEFA benefits with the fine, the people benefits with your addressing of the problem, and you benefit from the benefit of the discount on the fine. And people knowing that, because the lawyers of these companies know that's a benefit they can apply to, they prefer to kick the problem to the future. So we found, for example, that there was an intertemporal choice situation there, and we had to address that with some special nudges designed to this kind of situation. So we found something similar in every case, and we understood first the problem and investigated about what kind of nudge could be applied to every one of these problems.
I made some notes for everybody listening here of some concepts, that were coming up and what you're talking about there, right? So we've got our time discounting problem, and part of that where people are like, next, I'll do that tomorrow. I'll do that next week. I'll deal with that in 5 years when I have to. But by reframing the problem and making it, more relevant today, saying, yeah, you could pay $10 million then, or you can pay us $100,000 now. You go, like that's obviously better. I want to do this thing. It now becomes a little bit more urgent. We have the loss aversion coming into play where like, I don't want to lose 10 million tomorrow when I can do this 100,000 today. So your incentive is shifted to do something now when you naturally would maybe rely more on the status quo, or whatever that is.
Well, it seems pretty obvious. And from a rational point of view, it's pretty obvious. But that's why we didn't understand why people don't prefer to pay the fine with the discount now and expect us to pay the full amount 5 years from now. So after knowing why or how these people think, it's that we could be able to apply the nudges and have spectacular outcomes.
Yeah, such an important point. The best nudges are incredibly simple. And when you look at them in hindsight, you say, well, obviously, of course, that works, right? But when so you're, listening to this show or you're reading the books that have been talked about, here, nudge or predictably irrational. I'm going to talk about sludge here in a minute. But you read it and go, of course, easy. I could do that. And then you get your team, right? And you sit down and you say, okay, we're going to implement this stuff. Like now what?
Yeah.
when you look at your problem of saying, we have a 36% response rate and it's taking people 71 days to get these easy requests processed, then we have a shift when we're working on our own problem where you go, well, but that's just the way it is. Or what could we possibly do? Or, what's the effort? They should know how to handle this, but we need to just educate them better or whatever, right? We read the book. We know it should be something easy to bring in, but if it doesn't come to mind easy, it feels like there's this disconnect. So like you said, Mario, there's so much time that has to be spent on developing and thinking about who you're talking to. I'm absolutely going to be linking to my episode on understanding the problem that you're solving. You need to know, who it's for, what they're doing, what mindset are they in. Like you said, bringing in outside perspectives, even having, Mario being part of the team, being able to say, they're not looking at these documents. They don't see, like, I can tell you because these are my clients, like they don't see this.
Yeah. For example, the documents were very, very full of strange words, were very, very long with a lot of regulation reading. Were not simple, were not easy to understand. That was...
This one thing you're trying to get them to do is on page 78 of a 250 page.
Of course, yeah. Exactly like that. Yeah. Exactly like that. And the lawyer was saying, but I need to put all the regulation because it's the law. And I said, come on, why? So for example, in the case of government to government, the complaint case, we put all the regulation in the back of the letter because the lawyer was telling us, we have to put all the regulation of all the obligations. And I said, okay, it's going to be on the other, in another page.
Right. So then removing some of that sludge, like we're saying, the stuff that can be there, you can go find it if you want and need it, but it's not going to mess things up so that you don't get the point. We're not going to miss everything because of all this stuff we have to say. We can still say that, but could it be said somewhere else so that what's relevant is made obvious and relevant to get the action that you're trying to get?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it seems pretty obvious. For example, I'm going to give you some detail about one of the 5 experiments. In this experiment about liability acknowledgement, the problem was that there was a very low rate of companies that acknowledge responsibility after the administrative process began. Just 1.4% of the companies acknowledge responsibility, and as a consequence of that, they can have this discount we were talking about in the fine. Just 1.4%. And everybody knows, at least every lawyer that is into regulatory matters know that the law, because it's not a discount that is given like a discount of some merchandising or product of a product company. It's stated in the law. So you can find it and everybody knows what the law says. The law says, if you recognize your responsibility, if you acknowledge your liability, you can have this discount. Everybody knows. And even knowing that, and even me sitting in the same table with the lawyers of the company saying, you can have the discount, they preferred to litigate the case for 5 years. So after knowing that, what could we do to make them understand that this could be a benefit for their companies? So we changed it, just a document. It's pretty simple, as you said, Melina, a document, and frame the equation in a profit, like a profit framing, and an effective communication was, I'm going to tell you in this document, how can you be able to get the discount in a case that you will lose, not in 5 years, but in 2 years, because the statistics says that OEFA wins 95% of the cases that they are initiated. After knowing this information, that it's known, but you now have it in this little piece of paper, the rate came from 1.4%, as I said, to almost 35% of companies that in mining, for example.
And it's still growing.
It's still growing. that recognize this liability and were benefit with the discounts. And 35% in mining, and the result that was not so impressive is 12% in the fishing industry. That is a lot. 12%, it's a lot. In an academic research, you can find 3 or 4%, and everybody is clapping and saying it's a beautiful result, a beautiful outcome. But when you have 12, 15, 25, 35% of difference between the control group and the experimental group, just by designing a little document of 1 page that's just saying the same that the law says, and everybody knows it, it's like, why didn't everybody was just doing this if the information is out there? And that's when you understand that it's not about providing information, that it's some of the axioms of regulation and law. It's provide information and people will understand because we are rationals. It's about how you sell this information to people and how they internalize this information. You don't only have to provide it, you have to be sure that they are not only reading it, understanding it, but also internalizing it and getting part of their mental process in the right moment and with the right incentive that not only could be economic incentive, they could be also reputational incentive or another kind of incentives.
Yeah. I love all of that. And like you said, it's investing the time up front to make sure you know what you're doing. And then it's not a hugely expensive endeavor to change the way it's written on the sheet of paper that gets sent out, right? But it ends up saving on the back end, I'm sure, hundreds of thousands, millions, of switching from all this litigation that's not having to take place, and just a huge impact. Also, environmental benefits being the core reason why, BE OEFA and OEFA is here, to be helping this, and clearly well-deserved. I see that you won a National Public Innovation Prize for the work that you all have done. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing. Thank you. We're very proud. There's a National Public Innovation Award here in Peru, and we won it in 2020 for our work. And I think that also, because I want to complement what we were talking, that seems easy, but also there's something. You have to have information and data. Because if you want to say, for example, OEFA wins 95% of the cases, you have to know that rate. And if you want to know if your results are getting better or are getting worse, you need to measure. So this is also about information and data.
Absolutely.
As a public agency, if I can do any recommendation for others, have a lot of data. You have to invest in information and quality information.
Oh, thank you. Yes, absolutely. And I'm all about the importance of testing. I have an episode on designing experiments that I'll put into the show notes here too. But if these are impressive results, if you were to just say, oh, and it got better, is different than saying we went from 1.4% to 35% compliance, right? Like that is a very different thing to be able to say. And when you say, oh, and we're pretty sure, we could tell, less people are going through this process, what? Like that doesn't mean anything. It doesn't inspire change, right?
Yeah. And you can find experiments in which we have 60 and 70% of difference between the control group and the experimental group just by changing something. And the best of this was that it was a little investment and a very, very, very big outcome from this. It was just about changing the
way of communication. Yeah. Also the way of we communicate with them.
Yeah.
Right.
Something that I think it's important to know is that you don't have to trust your gut. If you want to to have outcomes that you can measure and because after doing this, someone reads this and says, it's pretty obvious. You if you do this, you will have better outcomes. But it's not that easy. First, you have to understand why you're going to do that. Because as you said a moment ago, if the public policy goes for a bad path and becomes a sludge, there's no way back.
Right.
It's not like a particular a private company promotion that, well, the only that's going to be hurt is yourself. You're hurting citizens, people, and you're using public money to do this. So it's pretty important that you are pretty sure that what you're going to do.
Right. And I know we didn't really talk about it too much, but there's also this additional benefit that you saw in creating BE OEFA of finding something that people were excited about. You had hundreds of people applying to be able to be part of this. We got a little bit of kind of like an IKEA effect of being able to be part of building this new program for the 30 that were chosen. And then those who want to apply into the future, we have this new, for them having this intrinsic motivation of being able to make something amazing that they're so proud of. And they love their jobs, I'm sure, because they get to be part of this and proud of the prizes you win, right? And so it's not all about accolades and awards, but also seeing this helping to energize an internal team to show this passion that they have in a way that brings about such amazing results is just truly fantastic. And I'm honored that you both were able to take some time out of your day of saving the world to come and speak with me.
Thank you. Thank you, Melina. Thank you for the invitation.
Absolutely. And like I said, there is a paper that has been published talking about these 5 interventions. I'm hopeful and planning to share both in English and Spanish in the show notes for everyone who wants to check those out. So thank you again. Is there anything else that you want to add before we wrap up our conversation?
Maybe I know your podcast is about business, particularly about business, but if you are a behavioral economist or are interested in behavioral sciences, there's a lot of space to work in the public sector. So if you want to have a career in behavioral economics, you can also have the public agencies as a client. So you can say it could be some kind of business if you want to.
I'm all about the business is many things, whether it's a nonprofit, it's to coaches, to consultants, to public policy. It's the it's all business and or life at the end of the day, right? It all fits here. So.
No, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Melina. Thank you for the invitation.
Of course. Thank you again to Karina Montes and Mario Drago for joining me on the show today. What got your brain buzzing in today's conversation? For me, as mentioned at the beginning of the episode, I am so excited to have a more international presence to the guests on the show and to be helping people from anywhere in the world to see that they can be the spark that starts a movement toward behavioral sciences in their country, wherever that might be. Just because no one else has done it yet doesn't mean that you can't or shouldn't be among the first. Many of the guests I've had on the show were early in bringing behavioral economics to the US, UK, or Australia, like Jez Groom, Elena Hallinan, Richard Chataway, and Beck Weeks. Wherever you are, know that there is a huge benefit in being the first, or among the first, who do something, especially something like behavioral economics, which we can be pretty sure is going to be around and growing for quite some time. Look at how Karina found Mario. After working with the group in Mexico because there wasn't anyone else that she could find that was Spanish speaking, and saying there wasn't anyone in Peru doing this work, and they said, there is someone. Mario is the person people will associate with this work in Peru, as is Karina now, and there's so much opportunity for them across Spanish-speaking countries. I won't keep harping on about it, but wherever you are, whatever language you speak, if you love this stuff and are doubting yourself or on some level waiting for permission to be first or just get started, I'm here to give it to you. Go for it. You've got this. And there's a whole community of people who love behavioral economics from around the world waiting to network and connect with you. My free group, the Be Thoughtful Revolution, is full of people just like you. Whether you are just getting started or have a degree in the behavioral sciences and anywhere in between, it's great to have like-minded people to connect with. Plus, it's where we keep all the freebies here at the Brainy Business. Whenever you download a freebie, like the one waiting for you in the show notes for this episode, you're automatically added to the group. And as a reminder, the show notes are waiting for you with a link to join the Be Thoughtful Revolution and everything else that I've referenced in today's episode at thebrainybusiness.com/195. In them, you will also find BE OEFA's research from Karina and Mario in both English and Spanish, as well as links to related books we talked about and some maybe we didn't, past episodes that I think are very closely tied to what we talked about today, and great next listens for you, and so much more. Again, those are waiting for you, along with your invitation to join the Be Thoughtful Revolution at thebrainybusiness.com/195. And if you enjoy the experience I've provided here for you, will you share about it? That could mean leaving a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or wherever else you listen, sharing this episode or any other with a friend who you think would find value in the insights, or even hitting that subscribe button if you haven't already. Thank you so much in advance. I appreciate it, and you. Thank you again to Karina and Mario for joining me on the show today. It was a delight to chat with and learn from you. Next week, Priscilla McKinney is here to talk about insights, personas, connection, and more. It's going to be a lot of fun. You won't want to miss it. Until then, thanks again for listening and learning with me. And remember to be thoughtful.
Thank you for listening to the Brainy Business Podcast. Melina offers virtual strategy sessions, workshops, and other services to help businesses be more brain-friendly. For more free resources, visit thebrainybusiness.com.